One final round of prep races on the trail to the 2023 Kentucky Derby. Our first preview goes to Keeneland for the Bluegrass Stakes. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Trust the Profits YouTube page, or if it's your first time joining us, welcome. I am Colin Sheehan, joined by my awesome colleague, Matthew DeSantis. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing great. Got a little tan down at Gulfstream, as you might be able to tell, but ready for this final round of Kentucky Derby prep races. And the Bluegrass is going to be a really exciting race here as we have opening weekend at Keeneland.
We had to send our bail money over for El Hombre and Matt, so we're glad that it was enough to get you guys out. You can find him at Fail to Menace on Twitter. I am at CSheehan45. What we have here is a channel that's dedicated to horse racing. We're giving you content nonstop as we run up to the Kentucky Derby for 2023. This weekend, we have really the last three prep races. Check out the other preview videos we have. In this video, we are looking to Keeneland in the Bluegrass Stakes, a field of 11. There is 100 points on the line for first place, 40 points for second place. And what you'll see this weekend is a lot of those horses in the 20 to 50 range of points. And you need to get in that top 20 to qualify, at least to get into the gate for the Kentucky Derby. So all the horses we see this weekend are obviously not going to get in, but you figure the first and second place finishers will, especially if they're already in that 20 to 40 range. The Bluegrass is an exciting race, I think, Matt. I think that we have some Kentucky Derbies and contenders in here. What are your first impressions of the field as we bring it up?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting field. I think the two names that people are going to naturally gravitate to are the two morning line favorites, Tapit Trice and Verifying. I think these are horses that people have some pretty strong opinions about, actually. Tapit Trice was installed as the 5-2 morning line favorite, Verifying second choice at 3-1. But you also see a horse like Raise Kane, who actually is coming off a victory at the Gotham and his own Kentucky Derby prep victory as well. You see a couple of horses coming out of different races at different tracks. Hayes Strike coming out of Laurel Park, Scooby Quando coming out of Turfway Park, Blazing Sevens coming up from Gulfstream Park. So, I mean, really people coming all over to come here to Keeneland, but it is an interesting field. I do think it's a little top heavy in terms of, I think the top two are probably a little bit clear of the rest of the field, but I still think there's some value to be found underneath in particular.
Yeah, we'll start right at the top there. I'm assuming you're talking about Tapit Trice and Verifying. Verifying, I was just looking at the Kentucky Derby standing points. This horse only has 14 points, and for a long time, and we've had our top 25 list for quite a while, November, December, January. This is a horse that was right up there. Only has 14 points, so definitely needs to finish first or second here to really be comfortable getting into the gate. This horse is a half to Midnight Bisou, older female champion a couple years ago. A little surprised, but coming in for Brad Cox. We'll talk about the jockey change in a little bit because Tyler Gaffalione is up. Tapit Trice is the one that has 50 points, so you figure Tapit Trice is already in the gate.
Yeah.
Which of those two are you more interested in?
I'm more interested in Verifying. Tapit Trice is a horse. I'm just concerned about how this horse gets off. If you watch the Tampa Bay Derby, he got off incredibly slow, let the entire field get in front of him, and then had to really get pushed hard by Luis Saez the whole way around, particularly down the backstretch. Finally got engaged, made a huge sweeping turn, ended up catching that field. It should be mentioned, though, that field was not particularly strong. So can he do this against a better field? He's also now breaking from the inside rail, even more recipe to get shuffled back, not have a great trip. I'm not a big fan of this. Verifying, on the other hand, love this horse. This pace should set up perfectly for him. There's not a lot of pace in this race. He can sit either right on or right behind the pace and really be able to dictate his own terms and be in perfect position to launch for home when turning in the home stretch.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I'm much more interested in Verifying as well. I've kind of faded Tapit Trice a little bit. Those starts can't be anything you're excited about. And look at the right column here where it tells you the early speed and the closers. There's only two horses that are showing early speed. Your Major Blue, who I believe is 30-1, a long shot, and Verifying with the E5. Inside early speed, he's going to get a nice setup, and I think Verifying is the one of the two, if you're going to put those two on the top, who I would be more interested in. Let's take a look at the Brisnet Prime Power numbers because you said it's top heavy. Fairly so. I actually do want to talk about Blazing Sevens because this is a horse I never thought I've kind of just faded. And I looked through this field today and I went, wow, I actually think I'm interested in Blazing Sevens. The prime power numbers, there's not that gigantic of a difference between the top two. Like you said, it is a little bit top heavy, but it's not as crazy as you might have expected. What are your impressions looking at the prime power number here? Do you think it's as close as those sort of stack up on the top there?
Yeah, it's interesting. With Blazing Sevens, I wonder how much of that prime power number is dictated by what he did as a 2-year-old. Obviously, winning the Grade 1 Champagne, finishing 4th at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He has some good races earlier on in his career, came back and really ran a very poor effort first time off the bench at that Fountain of Youth. Has come back with some decent 4 furlong work since then. At 6-1 on the morning line, I'm not thrilled at that price. I would imagine he's a horse that's probably going to float up. If he does float up to double-digit odds, then I think I'd be interested in maybe using him in some capacity. But a horse that I kind of like, 2 horses that are kind of sitting mid-pack there, Classic Car Wash and Scooby Quando. These are 2 horses I really like a lot. Classic Car Wash just always seems to get there and hit the board. It would just finish second to Tapit Trice at that aforementioned Tampa Bay Derby. Scooby Quando scratched out of the Jeff Ruby Stakes. He had been running just at Turfway Park. Comes here. He's a really nice horse for trainer Ben Colebrook. He's another one who broke his maiden actually in a stakes race, finished second in the Battaglia to Congruent. So he's got some Derby points actually. And I think, with a minor award here, can absolutely qualify for the starting gate. So he's one at a bigger price at 15-1 on the morning line I'm interested in.
The horse I'm not interested in is number 10, Raise Cane at 9-2. You can tell by the prime power number where this horse, at least going by that, fits in, and its rate slap bag in the middle there. And 9-2 is not a price that I am interested in at Raise Cane at all. Raise Cane won the Gotham, won it fairly convincingly on a muddy track at Aqueduct. What are your thoughts on Raise Cane? Are you kind of fading as I am?
Yeah, I am. And it's funny, he and Scooby Quando are trained by the same gentleman, Ben Colebrook. And Raise Cane, it's important to remember that Gotham, bizarre race, riderless horse kind of getting in the way. That just really kind of screwed up a lot of people's pace scenarios. It was also blistering pace. It was a 1-turn mile. There's just a lot of factors that make you go, I don't know if I really want to use, especially 9-2. It's one thing if he was 6-1, 8-1, 10-1. Sure, I'd be interested at a bigger price, but at 9-2, third choice, I'm going to look elsewhere for my value. Like I said, Classic Car Wash, maybe Scooby Quando. That's kind of where I'm looking.
Yeah, I'm interested in Classic Car Wash as well, but I'd like to take one step back at Blazing Sevens, who you mentioned.
Yeah.
There's only 2 horses in this race that have a graded stakes win. This is a grade 1, and that is Blazing Sevens and Tapit Trice.
Yep.
Let's go back and look at Blazing Sevens. If you look at the horses that Blazing Sevens has lost to, Blazing Sevens run 5 times. He's won twice. Guess who won all 3 of those other races? So if you're playing that little game of who's beaten who, it's Forte, Forte, Forte. So sure, you can say he struggled in the Fountain of Youth. It was off of a pretty long layoff. He was bumped early. It was just never in it, and it was never a race that he was going to be a part of. There's one more thing I want to point out. Forte's jockey's spoken for the Kentucky Derby. Irad Ortiz is getting them out here for Blazing Sevens. I think that's intriguing enough coming in to ride for Chad Brown. I'm really interested in Blazing Sevens in this race here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, following Irad Ortiz is never a bad idea. He's a heck of a jockey. And you're absolutely right. Blazing Sevens has run against spectacular competition his entire career. And you cannot knock his previous form in that regard. I just don't know how good he's going to be. So we see this a lot. 2-year-olds come back as, how do they come back as 3-year-olds? Are they just as precocious? Are they just as strong? With Blazing Sevens, I want to see it before I kind of believe in it a little bit. Like I said, if he floats up from 6-1, he gets up to that 8-1, 10-1 territory, then I'd be a little bit more interested. At 6-1, I'm a little bit like Raise Cane, a little too low for my liking, but absolutely see where you're going there. And I can't fault the logic at all.
Yeah, I think he's going to be able to sit a nice trip, going to be outside of that inside speed that we talked about, and maybe it sets up well for him. One last horse I want to talk to you about is Sun Thunder, and I talked a little bit about the little shifting of jockeys, right? Florent Giroux is riding Sun Thunder instead of Verifying, who is trained by Brad Cox. I thought that was an intriguing little inside the gates move that's happening here. Sun Thunder's been one that I've continued to play as my value play, as we've had these shows of who usually getting a pretty good price on him. He just hasn't materialized into the winner's circle. But the horses that he's lost to, King's Barn, Angel of Empire, and Arabian Night, we obviously just saw Angel of Empire back up his effort in the Risen Star. Where's Sun Thunder on your radar?
He's definitely on my radar. I would say, he's right there along with Scooby Quando and Classic Car Wash as horses I'm looking to use in verticals. Absolutely. Because here's the thing. You go back, look at that Louisiana Derby where he ran last time. That was actually a pretty speed favoring track for a horse that likes to close from the back. So, he was fighting the track as much as he was fighting that incredibly slow pace that King's Barn set that day. So, I'm a little worried about just the quick turnaround, basically a 2-week turnaround to run. We'll see how fresh the horse is. Ken McPeek, much like Dwayne Lucas, will turn horses around pretty quickly. So I agree with you. It's interesting that Florent goes to a Ken McPeek horse and a kind of a long shot Ken McPeek horse rather than riding the kind of the second choice and Verifying. I will say Verifying, and I don't know if this is Brad Cox being petty about this or not. I will say Verifying didn't have the greatest trip last time out. Some of that was on Florent Giroux, I thought. He was very indecisive at the top of the stretch. Did he go inside, to go outside? He kind of ended up getting stuck behind a bunch of horses. And so it's interesting that they make the move to Gaff Leon, who obviously knows this Keeneland track so well.
Scaring me off of my top pick. But one thing we like to do on this show is give a top pick and a value play. If you watch the Trust the Profits, Matt has a show called Capping the Card. And if you followed along a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago when you played him and Scott Shapiro's top picks, you would have hit a very nice $6,000 pick 5, I believe.
$5,400 pick 5 for a $16 ticket. So we can pick them every once in a while. I picked 2, Scott picked 3. We teamed up nicely.
Once in a while. So we stole that because I feel like it's a great approach to races. Give everyone, who we think is going to win and then where you might be able to find some value. So, Matt, for the 2023 Bluegrass, where are you going on top?
Well, if it's not clear already, I'm going to go with the number 3 horse, Verifying. Really like this horse. Think he's sitting on a big effort. Think the pace sets up perfectly for him. And I just think this is going to be his race. And you mentioned it at the beginning. He's going to need the points. He needs to have a big effort if he wants to end up in the starting gate. And I think that's where he's going to end up.
Yep. I don't know if we've ever agreed on our top pick, but we do this week. And I exactly agree with you. I believe Verifying has a lot more to give than we've seen. This horse racing the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, finishing 6th to Forte and Cave Rock. He was bothered in that start. I think it ends up coming down to the trip. And you made a great point about maybe it's Drew's off and that's why Tyler's on. But we've talked about overall the 3-year-olds this year and the tiers and kind of who's who and who's where. I feel like Verifying's more towards the top of those tiers still. Yeah. Even though he hasn't shown it. So I'm going to give him one last shot. I know where El Hombre would be. He loves Tapit Trice.
He does.
I think he still loves him on this inside post. The break is something to be concerned about, and we're going to be watching that as clues as we go into the Kentucky Derby. Obviously, it's kind of something that we saw a little bit with Mage, who's had a little bit of trouble clearly getting out, and that may have cost him the Florida Derby. Where is your value play going?
Well, I'm going to go with a horse that I love to say his name, and I loved him in the Battaglia as well, and that is Scooby Quando. I will go with the long shot Ben Colebrook horse. Love those Turfway Park shippers. This horse really hasn't done anything wrong and has kind of progressed nicely every single time out, stepped up, run his race every time out. I think this horse is pretty classy. I think this horse has pedigree to suggest he'll be able to handle the dirt. That's not going to be an issue. Colebrook knows this Kentucky circuit very well. So I'm going to take Scooby Quando at 15-1 as a little bit of a value play.
Nice. I was between 2 horses, and that is number 4 Classic Car Wash and number 8 Blazing Sevens. When I wrote down going into the show, I wrote down my value play is going to be Blazing Sevens, but I think I'm going to change that last second here, and I'm going to try with Classic Car Wash at 12-1. You didn't mention the jockey upgrade here you're getting as well to Javier Castellano, who just rode Cyclone Mischief, really, really well in the Florida Derby. He's a Hall of Fame jockey. This horse is sired by Noble Bird, has run it a mile in the 16th. 2 lengths behind Tapit Trice last time out. 12-1. I'm hoping that, Tapit Trice inside getting take at 5-2. I'd much rather take a horse at 12-1 who only lost by 2 lengths there and has that jockey upgrade. I told you about Blazing Sevens, why I thought there was some value there. 6-1, you're right. Maybe it's a little bit lower than I would want. I thought that might float up a little bit. So I like to be decisive. I'll go with Classic Car Wash, but you can tell that Blazing Sevens was right there behind me. Stay tuned. We've got plenty more content here on Trust the Profits. It does so much for us if you can like and subscribe. And we are bringing you up to the 2023 Kentucky Derby. This week, Matt's going to be on this channel nonstop. Big guest coming up. Who you got coming, Matt?
Well, I got Gabby Gaudet coming on for the Keeneland Saturday Stakes Pick 5. I got a video with Sarah El-Badwi going over the Friday Stakes races at Keeneland. And then brace yourselves, folks. I have Naira's own Andy Serling coming on, and he and I are going to talk about the graded stakes races, the 4 of them on Saturday's Aqueduct card, including the Wood Memorial. So hopefully I know what I'm talking about, and Andy doesn't yell at me during that. So should be a lot of fun, though.
Can't wait to see it. Stay tuned. We have more previews coming up, and like and subscribe. Take care.